The UN's lifeline into Gaza is drying up. Many donor countries have suspended funding after some of its staff there appear to have links to Hamas's October the 7th attack. So, what will be the fate of the millions of Palestinians who still need food, water, and medicine? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. 2 million Gazans rely on the UN Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA, for help with even more people in need since the latest war started. But can the organisation continue to operate as alleged links with Hamas come to light?
More allegations of collusion with Hamas, this time after tunnels were found under UNRWA headquarters in Gaza. The head of the organization said it did not know what is under its headquarters. It was made aware of reports through the media regarding a tunnel under the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza, and that staff left its headquarters in Gaza City on 12th of October. This follows allegations that a dozen staff members were implicated in the October 7th attack. They were sacked and the UN agency is investigating.
The accusations, allegations are serious. We need transparency, we need reviews, we need auditing, and we believe in the international system and the way they will deal with the situation.
Many major donors have paused future funding until the UN's investigation is completed and presumably changes to screening for staff members. But politics is also at play.
It's not a secret that the Israeli government wants to get rid of UNRWA. Not now. For many years before, wanted to get rid of UNRWA because they believe that getting rid of UNRWA, they get rid of the problem of the Palestinian refugees. No, we make it still worse.
Israel says the organization should be dismantled and that it makes the refugee problem worse. UNRWA disagrees.
I have also talked with the member states about all these calls for UNRWA to be dismantled, to be terminated, and I have warned about the impact. I have said that these calls are short-sighted.
The people living in Gaza and in other camps rely heavily on the UN for basic necessities, and the demands are greater now than ever.
If they cut off the aid from UNRWA, there will be no help of any kind for the residents, especially in refugee camps, because they rely on UNRWA. There is no external aid, it's obvious.
The needs of those in Gaza are deepening, and a famine is looming. How many will be punished for the actions of a few?
Well, we reached out to UNRWA through several emails, but we did not get a response. So let's meet our guests. Joining us from Beirut is Sari Hanafi. He is Professor of Sociology at the American University of Beirut. In Ontario, Canada, is Michael Link. He is Associate Professor Emeritus of Law. That's at Western University in London, Ontario. And here with me in the studio, I'm delighted to say I have Besma Douki, a Palestinian doctoral candidate at the University of Kent. Besma was a refugee in Lebanon who benefited from UNRWA services and worked with them to support other refugees. You're all very welcome to Roundtable. Besma, tell me about your experiences. What did UNRWA do for you and your family?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So I belong to a third generation, to a third stateless generation of Palestinian refugees in Lebanon. I was raised and lived in Rashidiyya camp. Rashidiyya camp is one of the 12 Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon, and it's in the south of Lebanon. Actually, I have got me and all my siblings, the same for all my generation as well, and the younger children now, the younger generation, the youth and the children in the camps of Lebanon. I have been benefited from education in UNRWA schools, so I get my elementary and secondary fully free, very good quality education at UNRWA schools in my camp. And also I benefited as well, my parents, from the health care provided in UNRWA clinics and also from hospitalization support by UNRWA if we have any first emergency situation which require particular hospitalization outside of the camp in the Lebanese hospitals. In addition also to me benefiting personally and also my camp, the neighborhood in my camp and other camps as well, from the solid waste management, and also like from environmental and social development projects with women, with youth, with men in the camps, providing social protection support, cash assistance support, all kind of life-saving services, basic services from education to healthcare, to waste management, to social protection, to cash assistance, and most important, the employment part, the employment within UNRWA, within UNRWA infrastructure, like in schools, working directly with UNRWA as a social protection team and other stuff.
So UNRWA's work changed your life, you would say?
Absolutely, because I always say education have changed my life. And it's changing the life of every Palestinian youth, woman, man, and child in the Palestinian camps of Lebanon. And we are empowered by the education provided by UNRWA, particularly in the schools. So, of course, UNRWA have changed my life by giving me the opportunity for a free educational opportunities in order to excel and to thrive, living in a very destructural decades of discrimination, denial of human rights, lack of access to proper employment and basic human rights like property right in Lebanon. So UNRWA services meant to me and for every Palestinian a life-saving, a lifeline to continue living in a very harsh conditions inside the camp and thrive outside the camp.
Sari, we've just heard a very personal story there of how UNRWA's work helped Bestema's family for many, many years and changed her life. I mean, cutting off the financial aid to UNRWA, do you feel it's a collective punishment of the people of Gaza?
Absolutely. It's not only collective punishment, it's try to kill the Palestinian issue completely, because UNRWA is symbolically, it's really the custodian of the question of refugees. And we should not forget that it's not only Gaza, it's in a dear need for UNRWA, but also I would say particularly Lebanon, where I live. I mean, it's a huge organization with 1.2 billion of funding yearly, and something like 700 schools in the 5 areas of operation of UNRWA, and 140 primary health facilities in these areas. So it's really a state within these host society or states, a state who hosts the Palestinian refugees. Now, when it comes to Gaza, is particularly UNRWA is extremely instrumental in channeling the help to Palestinian refugees from the international organization who try to help from particularly from Rafah area. We should mention that in this total chaos of Gaza, it's only UNRWA organization who can know where is those who are in need of help, etc. So by curtailing, by killing this organization, you disturb the whole humanitarian aid to Gaza today.
Michael, would you agree? Do you think this is a very deliberate policy by the Israeli regime?
Of course, you know, the primary purpose, I think, of these present attacks with respect to UNRWA by Israel has been to try to eliminate the organization in order to be able to eliminate the Palestinian right of return. We know the Palestinian right of return has been around in international law since December 1948, when the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 194, which gave the Palestinians the right to return to their homes and to their homeland. That resolution has been reaffirmed over 100 times by the UN General Assembly. I believe it's probably the most reaffirmed resolution in the history of the United Nations. We see this frequently mentioned by Benjamin Netanyahu himself, who says that the only reason for why UNRWA winds up existing is to keep the fantasy, in his words, of a Palestinian right to return, to keep it alive. It's his belief, and I think the belief of many in the center-right coalition that he governs with, that if you eliminate UNRWA, you remove the Palestinian right of return from the international agenda for Israel and Palestine, and you're thereby solving a significant problem. And the Palestinians will then generally just disperse into the Arab world or elsewhere in the world.
Michael, how worried are you about the funding taps being turned off?
Well, there's part of me that thinks, that the global north countries who are the main funders of UNRWA and who are the ones who have, many of them who have wound up pausing their funding, are going to realize that within a few weeks, the already catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza is only going to get exponentially worse if the funding to UNRWA is not resumed. I'm worried by the fact that the cutoff of funding in the United States to UNRWA is now embedded in legislation that's going through Congress. If that goes through, then UNRWA will have lost its largest single donor, and we know what kind of hit the organization took in 2018 when President Trump removed funding. That funding will not be easy to wind up replacing. And I've got to say, it goes in the face of the order, the provisional measures issued by the International Court of Justice just late last month, where they were calling for all efforts to be made to continue the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. The pausing of this funding, or the stoppage of this funding, is going to be a catastrophe for the Palestinians, and there's nobody to replace it. This is magical thinking to believe that UNRWA, with its 13,000 employees on the ground, can be easily replaced by other programs such as the World Food Program, which has something less than 100 employees on the ground in Gaza.
Besma, 3 countries have said that they will continue funding UNRWA. Ireland, my country, Spain and Belgium. How do you feel about those countries saying that they will keep supporting it? And also, how do you feel about the countries who've decided to say no?
Actually, I feel hopeful because these countries, the countries that have supported or continue to support and also defund, really need to hear and understand the daily lively experiences of the Palestinian refugees, not only in Gaza, and across the Middle East, the Palestinian refugees who are living in 56 refugee camps for more than 75 years so far, completely depending on the basic services, life-saving services of UNRWA, and including education, healthcare, as we mentioned, and waste management. In these countries, these Palestinian refugees don't have access to their human rights. Like in Lebanon, they are called stateless. They don't have any access, not to durable solutions or to human rights. So I feel hopeful, and I really feel hopeful by particular these 3 countries, because they are giving example that in this particular situation, genocide that's taking place in Gaza, people and states need to take responsibility, not to support or to be complicit with the genocide, but to send a message of hope, active solidarity, active support to Palestinians everywhere, including in Gaza, that we are with you, we hear your suffering, and we want to help you. And we will never let you forgotten or left behind, not only in Gaza, in the exiled refugee camps, so no Palestinian refugee will be forgotten. Defunding UNRWA in this particular time is not a collective punishment only. It's a death sentence to 6 million Palestinian refugees across Middle East, 2.2 million Palestinian refugees in Gaza and also in West Bank that are completely dependent on UNRWA services. I will say this sentence for you. UNRWA existed in daily in every aspect of daily lives of Palestinian refugees.
Well, Besma, let's just look at the work UNRWA do in the Gaza Strip. It had registered 1.4 million refugees. That's about 74% of the population. It operated 8 refugee camps with over 13,000 staff, 274 schools for over 278,000 students, 22 health centres, 16 relief and social service offices, 3 microfinance offices, and 11 food distribution centres for almost 1 million beneficiaries. Sorry, the work UNRWA does for Palestinian refugees, it's truly extraordinary.
Yes, absolutely. Despite my, my criticism as a scholar I edited a book on the UNRWA after 50 years, where I argued that they don't treat the Palestinians, refugees, as a political subject. They treat them as a body to be sheltered and to be fed, in addition of course, education and health. So despite this criticism, actually UNRWA really was an extraordinary service providing organizations, and I would say that killing UNRWA today is without any due process. I mean, what struck me as a scholar is not only that actually is baseless evidence. So Israel announced that there is 13 Palestinian staff of UNRWA participate in 7 October operation. They provide no evidence on that. Most probably, what the Israeli provide is just a Facebook account where they show this UNRWA staff cheering this 7 October. There is no due process. The 17 countries who sever their relationship with UNRWA, they didn't took any evidence from Israel, and I think this is really fundamental to remind us.
Well, just on that point, let's bring in Michael. Michael, just on that point, I mean, UNRWA employs 30,000 people. How do you even go about vetting every single member of staff with regard to what Israel has claimed? And again, as Sari pointed out, we've not seen any evidence from Israel, have we?
No, we haven't. UNRWA's practice is to turn over at least once a year the entire list of its staff to the governments and the host states where they're operating: Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and to Israel. Israel has full access to those. Israel had these lists for a long period of time. Let's even assume that Israel's allegations are true. Let's put their argument at its very highest. This is 12 employees out of 13,000 in Gaza, less than 0.1%. If those allegations arise and are presented to the organization UNRWA, the responsible organization would say, "Okay, we accept your allegations for the moment. While we're going to number one, investigate. Number two, suspend or fire the employees while we investigate, and we're going to do this all as quickly as possible." That's what if you haven't got proof that the organization itself was somehow complicit or active in allowing employees to be able to do this, but in fact opposed it, which is very central to the UN rule of impartiality and the promotion of humanitarian principles, that UNRWA has done everything it could have done once the information was, the alleged information was given to it. And let's keep in mind that there's a pattern in recent years of, if you like, thin or completely false dossiers of human rights allegations being made by Israel. Several years ago, Israel alleged that 6 of the leading Palestinian human rights organizations were terrorist fronts. It maintained that allegation. It eventually presented a dossier to their main funders, which are European countries. And every European country that received the dossier, including the EU, said there's nothing here or there's insufficient evidence with respect to this. The funding continues from Europe to these organizations, and Israel hasn't taken any more steps to want to try to close down any of these Palestinian human rights organizations. With that kind of skepticism in mind, that should have been on the foremost of the 18 or so donor countries that wound up taking the step to immediately suspend funding at the height of humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza.
Thanks, Michael. Besma, I want to ask you, how do you feel knowing that there are young girls and boys now, like you were, growing up in camps, and they may well be denied the educational opportunities you got?
This is a very difficult question for me, not only as a Palestinian refugee with a first hand of being a Palestinian refugee living in a camp, benefited from UNRWA, but also as a humanitarian practitioner who worked with UNRWA and saw the impact of everyday support to UNRWA, particularly young children like young girls and young boys in Palestinian camps of Lebanon and also all around, particularly Gaza. Palestinians do care a lot for education, and we always say it's our weapon for a better future and gives us a lot of hope and keep us or pushing us to thrive. Imagine taking this right, which is already denied from us and across the Middle East because we are not being recognized as refugees under the convention. Imagine a young child, girl or a boy, who would love to be a doctor, an engineer, a dentist, I don't know, like a PhD scholar, like me, an academic, denied of a basic human right of getting proper education, free education. It breaks my heart, and I feel really worried about the impact of cutting the fund, particularly on life-saving services like education and healthcare, and also human rights as well, like the right of education. For us as Palestinians, as I mentioned before, and I will make it very clear, education has changed my life to be a better person and also to be a voice, not for the voiceless Palestinians, because we do have voice, but to be a voice about all our suffering, but also our thriving. The funding in UNRWA at this stage, in this particular time, with acute socio-economic hardship Palestinians are facing in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, and the catastrophic genocide happening in Gaza and in West Bank, is telling us or sending us a message that our humanity doesn't matter, we shouldn't enjoy our human rights, we shouldn't thrive, we shouldn't continue to thrive, and we shouldn't be hopeful. We shouldn't have a hope for a better future that we create for our children.
So they've taken your hope by turning the money off.
Absolutely, they will be taking the hope and the power that we have because we do care for education, and Palestinians are well known all around the world that we are very highly intelligent and very highly educated, and we care for education. So defunding UNRWA in this particular time is really a serious concern, and it will bring catastrophic impact on every human being living in the camps, 56 camps all around the Middle East and in Gaza. And UNRWA for everybody. UNRWA actually is Palestinians because most of the UNRWA are Palestinian staff. So UNRWA is Palestinians everywhere. So imagine destroying UNRWA or defunding UNRWA or eliminating UNRWA is eliminating the voice, the power, the hope of every Palestinian to live in a full dignity. Dignity here is a key word, in a full dignity and in full enjoyment of basic human rights like the right to education.
Thank you, Besma. Final question to you, Michael. At what point will the money start coming in again, or is this the beginning of the end of the road for UNRWA?
Well, let's hope that the funders who have suspended their funding are going to be satisfied with the findings of the two external commissions that have been set up by the United Nations to investigate both the allegations and the operations of UNRWA. One of them is scheduled to give a report sometime in March. If that report is positive, and I suspect it will be, given the overall integrity of UNRWA operations, then let's hope that's sufficient to allow the funding to resume. I suspect many of these countries, recognizing the humanitarian disaster in Gaza, are all set to want to do this. They just need the political cover of an external UN report that gives a green light to say it's safe to start funding the UNRWA operations again. So that's where our hope winds up resting, that this will all happen. One fears that this is not going to happen with the United States, and UNRWA will be scrambling to try to find donors to be able to replace the $330 million hole that the US funding will wind up leaving.
Michael, Sari and Besma, what a pleasure to meet you all today. Thank you. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Search for Roundtable TRT World. And if you like what you see, please do hit that subscribe button. But for now, from me and Brady and all of the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.